Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, August 15th, 2019. This is TraderSwift, and I'm going to give a quick market update. All right, we had more downside today. Looks like we did close in what I've identified as the bearish range, but we did close on lighter volume. And we also did close just slightly above, or maybe even right at the level. Actually, looks just slightly above yesterday's low on the QQQs. On the SPY, very similar thing. Down on lighter volume, but we did make a recovery near the end of the day and also closing in yesterday's range. So overall, I would still say be very cautious. We are still near these lows. Um, Still, also, I think the greater likelihood move is that we will want to go back and retest this swing point here. However, given that we closed within the range, and we also closed on lighter volume from yesterday. We may see ourselves getting a bounce. So, I would stay open minded and, really remember the market can go both ways. So it's important to have a plan for both. Given, though, that we are down here, we're pretty much in the very middle of this bottom range put in June with the top of the range put in last month in July. We're still very much in the middle of that. So, the trend is unclear right now. Are we setting up a much larger ABCD structure topside where we go A, B, C, and then D way up here? Or are we short term bearish where we start this with the A part, A point, A, B, C, and then we retest down here? Um, Zooming out a bit, you could make the case that we do have a lower or a higher low, another higher low. Potentially, this is another higher low, which would make the case to the upside. So, again, long story short, we don't know which direction we're going to go. You know, I personally think we'll get a little bit of a bounce tomorrow, but that may be short lived, and that also may just be another retest of this key area that we saw today. So, if I switch over to the 10-minute, um, you see when it broke down right below this level, and then it came back up and tested it, broke down, tested that bottom level, tested it again, and then ultimately failed and just could not really hold price. We did get a bit of a rally at the end of the day. Um, so we'll see what happens. Again, it would have been a much more bullish case if we could have closed within this middle area, which again is the this consolidation range I'm considering it, or the neutral area. The SPY, really same thing, same kind of story today. The charts look almost identical on the 10-minute. The IWM, let's see, kind of the same thing. It did close below yesterday's low, which is not surprising because this has been a weaker index. Looking at JNUG, we did get a bit of a recovery today on gold, just based on the weakness of the overall markets. Um, Again, we'll see what happens. If the market continues to act weak and we do break above this level, this previous high from July 18th, this may be a good place to take position. But until then, I'm going to be sitting out. I do have a few open positions: Team, CrowdStrike, AYX, Coupa, and Okta. Um, None of them I stopped out today, although with Team it was actually pretty close. My stop would be or is on a close below this line here, and we actually did come in and test it, and I was watching that very closely. We tagged it once. Looks like one candle tagged it, and then quickly rallied back up, finding resistance again, and then rallied at the end of the day with the rest of the market. So I'll be watching that closely. We did get a bit of a recovery, and I do like that it did close above yesterday's low. That's somewhat positive. And we're also still above the 50-day moving average, which is a indicator I do look at, but again, I don't trade based on that. CrowdStrike started out the morning fairly strong, but found itself to be a little bit weaker this afternoon. But it did make a nice recovery, also closing within the range of yesterday's candle. This candle actually looks almost the same as yesterday, and that's on lighter volume as well. And I think Team was on lighter volume. Let me see. Yeah, just on lighter volume. So I stuck in that. If it closed below yesterday's low, I potentially would have sold it, but it really depends on how the rest of the market was doing. But for now, I'm in it, and I'll stay in it. AYX, kind of the same thing. It really flirted a bit with the highs, this high level here, but quickly rejected that pretty early and just stuck within this range. So it's still just kind of hanging up there on light volume. It's perfectly healthy, and I'm willing to wait on that. Coupa was my best performing stock today. It held up. It looks like it's 1.97% today, which actually within my entire portfolio, I was up and in the positive today, and that's mostly because of Coupa. So, I'll take a green day. Doesn't really matter. Yesterday it closed below the 50-day moving average. I was a bit concerned, and then and if it had closed below this candle here, I would have sold it yesterday, but I held in, and I'm glad I did. Today it closed above the 50-day moving average, which is a positive sign. But again, I want to see closes up here, and then ideally take out this swing point so it can make its way back up to the highs. But I'm going to stay in that. Okta. Again, very similar candle to Coupa. It is below the 50-day moving average. I would like to see that move above that, but I'll hold, and we'll see what happens. Zscaler, no position. It did have a little bit of a weaker day than some of the others. It is sitting right at a decent buy point. If the market were stronger, I would say this could be a really good buy point right now, but given the weakness in the market, make sure you do trade cautiously. But it is sitting right at a swing point. Shopify, more the same from yesterday on lighter volume. This is just a light pullback after the run, and I think it's still healthy. Smartsheet. Had a good positive day from yesterday, but again, this candle does not really change my thesis at all. I would love to see it kind of break out above yesterday and hold above yesterday's high to be, to really get my attention. But for now, I'm just going to wait. And, again, ideally, I like to see it above this 49.41 level. ARWR, new into my watch list. Early on, real early before 10 a.m., it was looking like it wanted to break out, but ultimately failed and just kind of hung out on much lighter volume. So all this buying, all this green, the volume has kind of been accelerating. You can see this, and then today on the red day, it actually got about half the amount of volume that it gets on the up days. So that tells me no one is selling. Definitely. So something to keep watching, and if the market does turn around at any point in the near future, this could be a good buy when taking out new highs here. AMD. AMD is just still showing weakness. I'm not too interested in it. You could potentially buy at this swing point, which is based on the high of April 3rd, the high volume day on April 3rd, but I'm not really too interested in it. Chegg, kind of doing the same thing. Kind of thought Chegg was a leader, but lately it hasn't been acting like it, so not too interested. Beyond Meat, talked about this earlier today in the chat. It finally broke below this point, so it had been finding some support here at this level, which is based on the low of the high volume day on June 18th. And when it broke through, it really did break through. It just kept going. It ultimately found support. Looks like about right here. And I don't know. This is on high volume. I believe it has more downside. My short term price target will be around around the 120 area, which would be in line with this one, 128.76. If it breaks this area, it'll definitely try to fill the gap right here. So I would not be buying Beyond Meat long anytime soon. If you're going to go short, if it does come back and retest this area upon rejection of this area, is where you would want to go short with a price target of that 121 area that we see here. Neo, kind of the same, just hanging out on light volume. Boring. Zendesk continuing to break down. Paysign, just keeping on. Roku, light volume day sitting at the highs, taking a rest after these big moves. I'd like to see Roku consolidate a bit in this range, would be great, and then it could be a buy on the breakout to new highs. But for now, I would sit tight. Rapid7, so it looks like it closed just below the swing point. So, again, that's not a good sign. It closed below yesterday's low and below that prior B point that it set up. If Rapid7 wasn't making as much money as they're making, and having such a, they do have good earnings, and they have great revenue, at least on a quarterly basis. This may be a good candidate to go short, but given that they're in enterprise software, which has been hot, security software, which has been hot, I wouldn't go short necessarily, but it's certainly not building a case to go long. If the overall broader market does continue to act weak, Rapid7 very well could come back and retest this 46 area, which was the original breakout area, and then it tested it here one more time before breaking out of that base and going to new highs. So I would just sit tight. If it does come back to this area, I'm going to be tempted to buy it, but we'll see. Zillow, I'm betting probably did awful. Yep, there it is again. You could have made a boatload of money shorting this, but oh well. It's heading right towards this swing point right here, so we'll keep watching it, and it will. CyberArk, it broke pattern a couple weeks ago, and it's continuing to follow through. It also closed below the swing point. So, as you can see, the Rapid7, CyberArk, those were leaders before. Earlier in the year, they were leaders. They're no longer leaders. CrowdStrike, AYX, Coupa, those are acting as leaders. The ones I'm trading are acting as leaders. The ones I was trading in the past, but I'm no longer trading right now because they frankly don't deserve my investment, so I'm not doing it based on the way they're acting. But I'll keep watching it, and we'll see what happens. But looking the way this is setting up, so if we have A, B, C, that's a very small retracement right there. That could set us up down to retest this 96, somewhere between the 96 to 100 area. So, that very well could be a price target right here on the short side. Again, I wouldn't short this because of the industry it's in, but, we'll see what happens. If the rest of the market continues to remain weak, this could definitely have more downside. Twilio, kind of setting up the same way. It did break the pattern, and it could have more downside, or it could just continue to consolidate here. Either way, if it does consolidate and it breaks above this 43.90 area. That could be a buy, but for now, again, sit tight. There we go. MDB. It is acting okay. I do like it above this area, the 140, 154.56. Zoom, another kind of IPO shape. It's just a